Let me tell you a story about a little boy that's from our village. His name is Chhouy. In November 2013, Chhouy got very sick, and we had to send him to the hospital. And while he was in the hospital, he was there. We put him in on Tuesday, and on Sunday, the hospital called us and told us to come pick up Chhouy. And so I looked at my husband, because we were having breakfast after Mass, and I said, oh, Chhouy's getting better, so we can go pick him up. And the doctor on the other end says, no, Chhouy's very sick. He will be dead in 24 hours. That his kidneys has failed, his liver is shut down, and his lungs are filling with fluid. And so I looked at John and I said, Min Chhouy, we've had him since he's been 6 months old. I can't let Min Chhouy die. So John called our friend that works up in Children's Hospital in Siem Reap and said we were going to bring him up there. And the guy says, well, it sounds like he's got kidney failure, not kidney disease. He needs a dialysis machine. And the only way you can get that is in Bangkok. You need him to get him to Bangkok. So John looked at me and said, well, we're going to take him to Bangkok. So I called my staff and said, we're going to go to Bangkok, get the passports, and I'll go home and get mine, and we'll go to Bangkok. And I thought, okay, we'll be okay. So on the way back to the airport, with Chhouy, we get there and they won't let me get a plane ticket because he's on oxygen. So my doctor ordered me an ambulance. This ambulance only had a bed and 2 chairs. It had no equipment. It was my oxygen tank that was in there. So we ended up going to the border, which was 7.5 hours away. And on the way, Min Chhouy kept getting sicker and sicker. We get to the border. He was on his hands and knees gasping. I'm calling John and telling John, I said, John, he's not gonna make it. I think we need to come home. And John says, no, as long as he's breathing, go ahead and go on, keep pushing. We tried arguing with the border guards to open the border because my child's dying, and they won't let me because they said it's closed until 7. And we got there at 2:30 in the morning. John had ordered a number of ambulance from Bangkok to come up and meet me, but they couldn't come across. So about 6:30, Min Chhouy started really having difficulty breathing, and the guy from the Bangkok ambulance come over to check on Chhouy. And he said, we need to get a tube down him to help him breathe. He said, I've got one in my ambulance, because I had nothing. And when he went over to the other ambulance, now they won't let him come back across because they said the border was closed. About 6:45, 15 minutes before they opened the border, Min Chhouy starts bleeding out of the mouth and out of the nose, and I thought for sure, not gonna make it. They end up opening the border, and I took Min Chhouy in my arms and I just ran over to the other ambulance, and we were able to get him into that ambulance, and we got all the visas stamped and passport stamps. We get in the ambulance, we take off. About half an hour into the trip, we had to pull off the side of the road because Min Chhouy had died, and they had to resuscitate him. An hour after that, then he ended up having to be resuscitated again. We get to the hospital, and they had to resuscitate him again. And so I had 2 doctors on his case. There was one positive and one negative. The positive doctor thought that maybe we had a little bit of a shot, but we didn't know if there was going to be brain damage or if he was going to be a complete vegetable. So the negative doctor said I should just go ahead and let him go because I really didn't have the $55,000 that I needed to be able to have the medical done. And we didn't have the $55,000. I was sitting there, I had to make a decision. of what to do. I couldn't get a hold of John because my phone doesn't work from Thailand. And I didn't know how he was going to ever get a hold of me because he didn't know what hospital I was at. A nurse had walked in just about the time I had to make the decision and said, "Here, John's on the phone." I told John, I said, "I don't know what to do." I didn't know what to do. And John said, "Go ask the doctor if we could just take 1 week at a time." So I went to the positive doctor and asked him, "Can I just do 1 week at a time?" And he says, "Yeah." He said, "We'll do it 1 week and see what happens." I have never used the media, social media for anything. But this night I decided I was going to ask all my friends on Facebook if they could help me. It's through prayer or $5. And so I got on Facebook and asked. That night I was able to raise $35,000 to be able to help Chhouy out. Because I just couldn't see having Chhouy die over money. It was all going to come to that. I didn't want it. 3 weeks later, Chhouy walked out of that hospital. He had to stay a week in Bangkok. So my girlfriend, that her husband is the manager of St. Regis, he stayed at St. Regis. He was waited on hand and foot. And when he came back to Cambodia, we picked him up at the airport and we brought him to the village. John dropped us off at the front gate, and I walked through as 240 children stood on each side of the road and greeted Chhouy back because they thought for sure their brother had died. And today Chhouy's in the 2nd grade, and he's still asked to go back to Bangkok so he could go to St. Regis.